vary in many different scenarios. So going through the exercise and then being part of our firm's administrative task force around changes that are occurring, it occurred to me this tool was a genius idea and would benefit all of our client not-for-profits in a way. And what we had was a PowerPoint presentation that was given to the board. I worked with Ryan, brought it to Ryan, and we both together kind of brainstormed what this could be and matured it into a usable workbook to become a living document to manage your risk.
Ryan, can you talk more about what the inputs are for the workbook? Like, what sort of activity or change does this help you plan for?
Yeah. So, I mean, ultimately, when you look at the layout of the toolkit workbook, really it's looking at every level of funding that you might receive, whether it be it's federal, state, municipal, individual, and seeing how your various programs or grant fundings, where it's coming from, what it's funding, how many FTEs you might be supporting under this program, to say, if we were to lose this funding, how is it going to impact the individuals that we're serving? But also, how is it going to impact our workforce? And so it's really like just a what if toolkit to just allow organizations to try and plan if something were to happen, to not panic, to just focus on a proactive approach as to if something were to be cut. This is the approach that we would try and do to react to that type of funding cut. So it's a tool to best support our NFP clients and other institutions. In no means is it something that's going to, allow a crystal ball to understand like what is going to happen, because there's still uncertainty in the world right now, and what's coming down from the federal administration, from every state, so hopefully it's something that organizations will find useful. And, like Chris said, it's a living document that's going to change on a regular basis.
So it sounds like this would be helpful even in, a year ago. Having something like this would also be helpful as if you were bringing in a new grant to think, okay, we're scaling up for this by X employees. This is the impact of it on our organization, things like that. And it does sound like the outcome of this is really more about pre-planning, figuring out what the different levers are that you might pull if funding were to go away. The answer is not necessarily cutbacks. It could be finding new funding streams, just looking at where the holes are. Is that right?
Yeah, Emily, I think that's exactly right. Ideally, this is something that I wish we would have thought of back in like 21. When organizations were being funneled with ARPA funding and other types of COVID funding that ultimately were never going to be an annuity stream of revenue, but organizations made changes to their operations, started different programs, hired different people. And, I know myself, I was having conversations with boards of my clients to say, this is not sustainable to continue on operations thinking that you're going to keep this money. And, so ideally, I wish we would have thought of this back then. But ultimately, the uncertainty that's unfolded so far with funding has really what pushed us into creating this toolkit. So, yeah, it's something that is not a point in time scenario, and it can be used on a regular basis.
Right. And that's so true, Ryan. When the part of the exercise that this part of this workbook is looking at your programs and assessing specific programs that you may have within your organization. Because at the board level, we started having discussions. If this grant got cut, if this fund got cut, is this program going to be sustainable? Do we have other alternative funding that we can pull from? Can we pull from reserves? How many FTEs were impacted? And then we had a larger conversation with, being in a community. Is there another organization, a community that's already doing this in a more substantial way? And does it make more sense to empower them to run with it and let us focus on our core mission and what that mission is? Because there were so many little grants that have spun off. And those were really where the uncertainty was what the future of these little small programs that might be for 24 to 36 months look like.
Can you provide some insights on how entities should be using it? So is this something that starts at the management level and then goes to the board for discussion? Can you talk through maybe, Chris, how your organization really, where the conversation started and what you've used from a tool perspective, kind of in that practical application of it?
Yeah, absolutely. In our board situation, I'm the risk guy on the board. That's what I do with BerryDunn. I'm a risk guy. So we have really been trying to elevate our risk game and understanding not only financial risk, IT risk, physical risk, all kinds of things. And so the board actually started asking questions. And our VP of Finance and CFO came back to us at the next meeting. So this is what I prepared based on those questions I had. So I think it needs to be driven by a board or very senior leadership. A very important part of this workbook is I personally don't think it is available. It shouldn't be available for the organization as a whole to look at, to work with. It might cause people to stress, to worry, to see the worst case scenarios and start to panic. So for us, it's a senior management and board tool to understand potential risk and let us figure out how we can mitigate and manage those identified risks.
So I guess my last question is, where can people find the tool? I know this is available free to clients and interested organizations. Where can we point people to find the tool?
The tool is on our website. So you can go to BerryDunn's website. I believe there's in the blog under resources as well. And it is gated, so you do have to enter some information to obtain it. But that's really just because we want to be able to reach out to you, offer our assistance, and work with you and talk you through it if you have questions, because it is a very complicated workbook.
Well, thank you very much, Ryan and Chris, for joining us. And anybody out there that wants to pull down the tool, it is on our website. And certainly we are available to connect with you should you have any specific questions on how to work through it, do a session with your management team or board on really that practical application of preparing and utilizing the tool going forward. But again, thank you very much for jumping on the podcast today.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.